I don't care if this is a hot take. I'm so over seeing people using the incorrect words just in life.
A lot of people are confused about the literacy crisis because they don't know what illiteracy actually looks like. Now, as someone who taught third and fourth graders, I can confirm that the literacy crisis is a very real thing.
And now high schoolers are graduating high school having never fully read an entire book, and they're going into these college spaces having to take freshman, sophomore level English courses, and professors are noticing that they are not able to digest whole text.
Around 20% of Americans are considered functionally illiterate. Think about that. That's tens of millions of Americans navigating contracts, loans, job applications, all without strong reading skills. And then we wonder why people feel so stuck. I've taken it upon myself to read a lot more this year, trying to expand my vocabulary, think more clearly, and articulate my thoughts more precisely. And it made me realize how much we actually take this skill for granted. Because when your reading isn't strong, everything becomes harder. Financially, professionally, as much as we all hate to admit it, politically. Statistics can feel a bit abstract, so let's take a look at a few clips of people sharing what this actually looks like in real life. As always, if you like this kind of content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But without further ado, let's get right into the video.
I don't care if this is a hot take. I'm so over seeing people using the incorrect words just in life that you see all the time on social media is influencers saying the word whenever when they mean when. Look, I know that those are sometimes interchangeable, but they're not always interchangeable, and so many people are using it when it doesn't make sense. Like, oh, whenever I was at work yesterday. No. Stop doing that.
We actually see this a lot online, specifically on like X or like Threads, where there's like no barrier to entry and anybody can write whatever they want. There's so many typos and so many people misspeaking or using almost the right word. I even like notice this in person when I'm talking to people and they'll say something that was kind of the right word, but not exactly. I never know what to do in that situation. Like, I always feel kind of pretentious pointing it out and being like, I don't think you're using that word correctly, or I think this is what you meant. It breaks up the conversation. It might hurt their feelings, and I'm not trying to do either.
Well, I live in the UK, right? And you constantly see, and have seen for many years now, on shows like Love Island in particular, will say word generally when they mean genuinely. That's not the same word. That's not the same. You can't do that. That's...
Again, very similar word. You're kind of there, but they have completely different meanings. And it kind of just makes you seem uneducated. I don't think there's anything sexy about it. It's not cool. And quite frankly, it's very embarrassing.
And I also just saw a video. This is what sparked this whole like, for me, like a book talk thing. But the guy kept saying the word literacy when he meant literary. Every single time. If you're new to literacy.
It sounds like you're new to literacy. No, but seriously, how do you have a book talk where your job is to explain or review books? You're not even using the proper terminology when talking about these books. I mean, that's embarrassing. And I'm not taking any recommendations from somebody like that. I mean, come on now.
That's reading. That's like learning to read. That's like your ABCs, your phonics, like literacy. It's like what you teach in primary school.
Taking a look at the comments. I could care less drives me mad. The phrase is I couldn't care less. And a lot of people don't get that, because if you could care less, you would. If you couldn't care less, that means you care the absolute least that you're possibly capable of caring. So I could care less doesn't make any sense. Another person bawling instead of bawling. When someone says I'm bawling my eyes out, I just imagine them making a Michael Jordan style slam dunk. That's not really a pronunciation one. That's just the wrong spelling of the same sounding word. It's still equally a problem. If you don't know which version of the word to use, that's not good. And you can't send that out in an email or as a reply, because people are going to think you're unintelligent. Mixing up infamous and famous drives me mad. That one I don't understand. I really don't understand how you don't understand what infamous and famous are. Famous, somebody that's known for something positive. Infamous, somebody's known for something that's not positive. That one's pretty straightforward, and I really don't get how people mix those up. This one says text-based, but a part instead of part of, literally the complete opposite meaning. Saying risky when they mean risque drives me up a wall. I've never seen that one, but that's hilarious. People using satire when they just mean joke or exaggeration. Weary versus wary, they have very different specific meanings. Verse instead of verses, this one drives me up a wall. They do not mean the same thing, so please stop using them interchangeably.
I was skeptical about the literacy crisis until I started playing on video games and like talking to people in voice chat, or like getting messages from people. First of all, sometimes people message me on GTA like in the middle of a mission, and I understand that, like, especially on PlayStation, it's really annoying to type. Some of you don't know how to spell anything. I have to like do science. I have to like parse apart the pieces of what you've said to comprehend the meaning.
Nothing frustrates me more than when I'm trying to read a comment or a post out loud to somebody and there's grammar and spelling errors and it makes me look like I'm the one that's illiterate. I mean, it gets my blood boiling.
And that is a just basic failure of language there. The other day, I was like hanging out with this dude on voice chat, and at some point we were talking about like what we were going to paint our cars. We were both like respectively painting our cars. And he goes, I'm thinking maybe this color, brown. And he's like trying to sound out this word. And I'm like, I wonder what he could mean, because I'm in the colors too. I'm going to the browns. I'm seeing like which one he means. And then I found the brown he meant. And it took him like another minute and a half to figure out what word he was reading. The word was sienna. And his best attempt at, like, before I finally felt bad for him and told him how to pronounce it, he said Sienna.
Now, admittedly, sienna is not a very common shade of brown. It's not one that you read all the time. So I can see why he would struggle with it. But also, not having the ability to sound it out and spending a minute and a half trying to figure it out is embarrassing. That's why phonics and reading comprehension is so important. The ability to be able to sound something out just by looking at it is crucial in life.
This was absolutely like a young person. He could have been anything between like 14 and 17. But dude, you can't read the word sienna. You can't read. And then he was reading other words, like the names of the colors, like Feltzer brown, etc., etc. And he was like really, really struggling, really, really struggling. And I could see his like failed like reading education there, because he knew all the colors that he like could assume safely were there. Like he sees the car is brown. He sees the word starts with the second word starts with a B is brown, right? He could do that. And I know that they were teaching kids like guess the word based on context. Insane. But he can't read anything else. Like, he can only guess what the word is based on context. Like, it's tragic to me.
And illiteracy is one of those things that you can't fake. I mean, if you are illiterate, you're not going to be able to fake being able to read. You're not going to be able to fake being articulate and being able to speak. It is very apparent to everybody once you step in the room and start speaking or trying to read if you are illiterate. You can't mask it. It's not like makeup. Taking a look at the comments. I'm reminded of the literacy crisis every time I leave a comment where I think my message is pretty clear, but I get 20 replies from people seemingly intentionally missing the point. The other day, someone posted a video asking why they were stuck on the toilet after becoming Chinese and drinking hot water on an empty stomach, and I commented saying that blindly following trends when you don't understand what you're doing seems really risky, and everyone who replied apparently thought I meant drinking water is what's risky. Another comment, phonics are not taught in school anymore. Most switch to sight words. Students are not taught to sound out words. Reading aloud is not implemented anymore because of fear of embarrassment. That's how I learned how to read. Popcorn reading is literally the reason that I'm able to read out loud, and I don't sound like a toddler when I do so. I will die on this hill. The downfall of single-player games is simply that no one wants to read anymore. It's not even that they can't, they just won't. It's crazy because growing up, I played a lot of RPG games, and it actually expanded my vocabulary because it was story heavy. Exactly. This is exactly what I'm saying. Games are very beneficial when there's no actual voice acting, because then you have to read everything, and if you don't know the word, you're more inclined to figure out what that word is so that you can understand the story. And that's super important, and that's what the point of books is in the first place, nonfiction at least. I said the word misogynist slightly wrong at the dinner table with my ex-BF's mom one time in middle school, and she corrected me so swiftly that I have never spoken without being at least 99.9% sure of my pronunciation ever since. The shame eats me alive 15 plus years later. So I don't know how kids do it now. Whenever somebody corrects or points out that I've mispronounced a word or that I'm not saying something correctly, it embarrasses me so heavily that it is now ingrained in my mind what the proper pronunciation of that word is, and to make sure that I nail it every single time, because I don't want to sound dumb. And some people just don't have that shame. They don't get shamed into it anymore. Another comment, I'm convinced this has been done on purpose so no kids can educate themselves properly and therefore vote properly. Same with them not teaching cursive anymore. How could anyone read anything historical? That's a great point. I never really understood the purpose of why I needed to learn script in school, like cursive. I didn't understand that. Like, I already knew how to write regularly. Why did I need to learn script writing? But I now see that historically script was used very heavily. I mean, if you look at the Declaration of Independence, that's a clear example. Being able to know how to write it is crucial to being able to learn how to read it. I didn't understand that.
When it is said that the U.S.'s average reading comprehension level is 6th to 8th grade, do y'all not understand what that means? Because I'm seeing a lot of people who are confused and shocked by that woman not being able to write a proper letter to her kid's teacher.
For context, there was a TikTok going around of this woman who had wrote her teacher a very nasty letter, and the letter was was riddled with grammatical errors, spelling errors, and it overall just sounded like it was written by a child. And this was an adult. People were ripping it apart on TikTok. That's what she's referencing here.
Should be no surprise because that letter that she wrote is representative of a lot of people in the US. This is not surprising whatsoever, especially as a person who works in customer service. I guess y'all would be surprised when I say that a majority, honestly, I'd say majority of people write at that level. I'm not even joking. If you went up to a random person on the street and you asked them to write a letter, see what they come up with. It's really not that hard to grasp because the stats have been telling us this. If the average reading comprehension is at 6th to 8th grade level, that means that you cannot write beyond that. Given that lady was at like elementary grade level, but we need to stop being surprised and we need to start making a change because this is unacceptable.
And if this is how the parent is writing, imagine how the kid's writing. Not good. Taking a look at the comments. Average, which means some people are lower. That's sad. Another comment, I blame one policy, the No Child Left Behind. They don't hold kids back anymore, which I think is ridiculous. I got held back in 3rd grade due to attendance. And I think that's one of the best things that ever happened to me. I met a lot of my close friends the second time I did 3rd grade. I don't think I was ready to go on to 4th grade. And I'm glad that I was left behind. It needed to happen. And it just doesn't happen anymore. God forbid you write above an 8th grade level, then your professor thinks you're using AI. Now, this is something that actually I experienced in my life when I was in school. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because it's true. This was before AI. And I remember in 8th grade specifically writing a essay on Malcolm X. And the essay I thought was really well written. This is when you had to write a 1st, 2nd, and a 3rd draft. And this was for history class. My history teacher thought I plagiarized it. I wrote the entire essay. I just used whatever learning materials I got from a book that I read about Malcolm X. So much so that she thought it was plagiarized, she gave it to my English teacher to ask if this was the caliber of paper I was capable of writing. To which he replied, yes. But that is a real thing. God forbid you're an outlier and you write above the grade level that you're at. They assume probably now that it's AI or that you plagiarized it. That's how bad it's gotten. They assume most people can't write like this. So when you do, you must have cheated somehow. In nursing school, we are told to educate and communicate with patients based on the assumption that they have a 6th grade level of knowledge of comprehension. The federal government didn't bring us to this point on accident. It's a product of their own doing, and they're quite frankly proud of it. Look at what they're able to accomplish by continuously defunding education and social programs. Look at how easy it was for them to manipulate their supporters with BS promises of prosperity while they struggle through an economy that was built by the federal government to enrich the 1%. Is that person wrong? Nope. Person, it's a lack of literacy. Take your kids to the library, read to them, let them read to you. My child reads and comprehends at a 12th grade level and she's 11 years old. This person says, damn, I was 6th grade reading level when I was in 2nd grade. That's crazy. I've been out of school for a little over 2 years and was so scared my reading comprehension and writing abilities plummeted, but then I saw how other people confidently read and write and it assured me that I'm doing okay. The amount of people who never read another book after high school is astounding. This is actually a topic that I brought up with my friends recently and that I attempt to talk to people a little bit more about that are around my age, and that's how many books they've read within the past year, 2 years, 3 years, and the answer is always not as much as you would think, or sometimes none at all, and that's scary. And I'm not trying to shame anybody into reading, but it is crucial. We don't stop growing or learning after high school. So in turn, we shouldn't stop reading after high school. And reading posts on social media is not the same at all. But this is a very true comment. And a lot of people probably haven't read or picked up a book after they graduate high school. And that's sad.
A lot of people are confused about the literacy crisis because they don't know what illiteracy actually looks like. Now, as someone who taught 3rd and 4th graders, I can confirm that the literacy crisis is a very real thing. And everyone should be concerned about it. It affects so much. It's way bigger than you think. So let me just drop some stats really quick. I got the stats. 21% of adults in the US are functionally illiterate. Even more concerning is that 54% of adults in the US read at or below a 6th grade level.
More than half, 54%. That means there's less people that can read higher than that than there are people that can't. Insanity.
And 66% of 4th graders in the US as of 2024 are reading below grade level. That is concerning. So let's break it down. What is illiteracy? Because a lot of people, when they think about illiteracy, they think you literally just look at words and you can't decode it or you can't say what that word is. When I say decode, think about if you saw CAT. A lot of people will think, of course, you're illiterate. If you see CAT, you don't automatically say cat, right? But there are a lot of functionally illiterate people and children that will be able to decode a cat. So you're looking at them and they're saying the words that are on the page. So you're thinking, how could they be illiterate? And then that's when you're like, there's no literacy crisis. Because I see my child and, they're reading a book, but Here is the problem. A lot of people confuse decoding and actually comprehending what you're reading, understanding what you're reading.
Saying the words out loud is not the same as comprehending them. You might be able to pronounce or read the words off of paper, but if you cannot comprehend what those words mean, you cannot read. You are illiterate.
All started with No Child Left Behind, which was passed in 2002 under the Bush administration. Now, the problem with that was a lot of kids got left behind. They didn't get left behind physically, but they got left behind intellectually. And we are seeing the fallout from this. And it's also continuing, right? With No Child Left Behind, that's when they started annually testing children. So I know people that are my age, millennials, younger millennials, of course, Gen Z. That's just a thing that we've always done, is test every single year. You test in the spring towards the end of the school year. Typically, those test scores are what determine if you're going to the next grade. So I know it used to be if you got all A's, B's, maybe even C's, right? As long as you didn't fail a class, you can go to the next grade. But what happened with No Child Left Behind was, no, you have to pass the standardized test, a multiple choice test, in order to go to the next grade. But also, they had this accountability clause in there, right? So they're holding the schools accountable, which I don't think on a basic level, holding schools accountable is not a bad thing at all. But what happened was, it was more about the numbers. How many kids do you have that are passing the test, that are reading on the correct grade level? And then the school got rewarded monetarily. So their budgets for the next year were directly tied to the test scores of the previous year. Of course, this causes all of this corruption because everyone's getting pressure from the people at the top. It's all about money. It's all about numbers. It's all about the stats, right? So they're trying to fudge these numbers. You get a lot of cases of just teaching to the test. You hear this a lot in education, teaching to the test, where we're going to just teach the kids how to answer the questions, not how to think, not how to actually read and comprehend what you're reading, but how can we get as many kids as possible to answer the questions on the test in a way that will boost the score and the prestige of the school and therefore of the county. That feeds into the state. So it stopped being about learning and thinking for yourself. It just started being about answering the question in the right way. And because it doesn't look good to have a lot of children that they didn't pass the test, they can't go to the next grade, that's going to be a lot of logistical issues. That's what people don't realize. It's a lot of logistics. And then also when the higher ups are looking at the numbers for these schools, when they're dispersing the money, it doesn't look good if most of your fourth graders are staying in third grade and then you're promoting second graders to third grade. Now you got a bunch of third graders, right? You have no fourth graders. That doesn't look good on paper. So they were doing a lot of things in order to promote kids who they knew couldn't read on the fourth grade level to fifth grade. Now, what does that look like on the standardized test, right? The multiple choice test. There are 4 different levels of questioning that a child will get. The goal is, in order to pass, you should be able to answer the lower level questions. Everyone should be able to answer the majority of the lower level questions. So I'm going to give you an example. The cat wore blue mittens. So let's say that a child gets the sentence in a test. The cat wore blue mittens. There are 4 levels of questioning that they could get for this sentence, right? These are called DOK levels, depth of knowledge. So the first level, which is the lowest level that everyone should be able to get, and that's just recalling the information, right? So the question might be, what did the cat wear? The issue is that most kids are not getting these questions correct. If they were, they would be passing the test. Not, they wouldn't get a high score, but they would get enough. It would show that they are reading on grade level, right? Barely, but reading on grade level. So you can literally look at a kid and they would read, the cat wore blue mittens. You think that they know how to read, right? There's no literacy issue. Then you ask them that level 1 basic question, what did the cat wear? And they're looking at you like, eh? Now think about, if I'm not even verbally asking you that question, you're taking a standardized test. I can't help you. I can't say anything. You have to read this in your mind and then answer the question. You don't understand what you're reading. You don't even know this is about a cat. So how could you tell me what the cat wore? Then the next level of questioning, level 2, would be conceptualizing, right? So a question for that with the same sentence could be something like, Why do you think the cat wore mittens? The answer would be probably something like, it was cold outside, it's snowing, it's winter. Even more kids are not getting this one because, again, they're not getting the basic level question. So they can't even conceptualize that the cat has mittens. Now I want to infer, why do I think that the cat had mittens on? Because it's cold outside, right? Level 3 would be strategic thinking would be, okay, let's change the sentence up. What if the sentence said the cat refused to wear mittens? How would that change the meaning of the sentence? If you don't even know that the cat wore mittens, you don't even comprehend that, how are you going to answer the question of, if the sentence changed, the cat refused to wear mittens, how does the meaning change? They can't do it. Then the highest level is always going to be create. So a create question would be something like, write a short story about how the cat ended up with mittens. That's the highest level. How does this affect us as a society? As Whitney said, the children are our future. If the kids are failing the test, but still getting promoted, that's a whole different conversation. I can go into that in a different video. But if the kids are failing the test, but for the numbers, for the funding that schools want to get, all of these things, they're still getting promoted to the next grade. You could have a third grader that's reading on a first grade level. They're going to get promoted. Even if they had amazing teachers, you only have a year. You have 10 months with these kids. Even if they worked with that child every single day, and then that child goes from a first grade reading level to a second grade reading level, if you still promote the child, then they're going to be a fourth grader reading on a second grade level. They're falling even more behind because with each year, the reading gets more complex. And then what happens is when you get to around 5th, 6th grade, it's less about reading the stories, reading just to learn how to read and comprehend, because you're supposed to do that a little bit earlier, right? So when you get to 6th grade, that child is probably reading at the 3rd grade level now, but they probably have reading for science. They have articles that they have to read for science. They need to read different texts for history, right? So now it's like subject matter things, and they are missing out on all of this because they don't have the basic foundations of reading, understanding what you are reading. So they're just falling behind even with content knowledge. This is when you get on TikTok, you have adults that they don't understand facts versus opinions, or how you take facts. You use those facts to form your own personal opinions. But the facts are still the facts. You can have your opinion about things, but the facts are still the facts. You have people who don't understand this, because if you're not reading to understand, then you can't research. The thing about reading is that it is a very dynamic skill that you have to continue to practice and flex that muscle. It affects not only how you're understanding and analyzing information when you are just reading, but also when you're listening to other people. But at the end of the day, it's easier to have and to control a society of people who don't form their own opinions based off of factual information because they're not reading it. It's easier to control those groups of people because they're going to rely on a small group of thought leaders.
So it's essentially just passing the problem off to the next person. And it's crazy because if you can't research for yourself and discern fact from opinion or discern truth from lie, you are easily manipulated. There is no way around it. If you cannot read a piece of information and then fact check that from another source and then reading that source, taking all the information that you've got, compounding it together, and then drawing a conclusion from there, you are easily manipulated. And that's exactly what these kids are looking at in their future. And it does not look good. Taking a look at the comments. I said the word facetious at work, and when I tell you nobody knew what that word was or even meant, they thought I made it up. They've never heard the word facetious in their life. They didn't know what it meant, thought this person was making up the word. The switch from phonics to sight words was detrimental. I don't understand that concept still. Like, they literally switched phonics to, oh, what does it look like this picture says? They'll show you a picture of a cat and they'll be like, what does it look like this picture is? And then they have to try to figure out what it is by just looking at a picture. It doesn't, I still can't wrap my head around it. I don't know exactly how it works, but I've seen stories online of people just saying that they've eliminated phonics for this type of learning, and I don't understand it. The person said, this is why fiction books are so important. The number one way to teach children to understand what they're reading is to tell them a story and get them super interested in it to the point where they want to know what happens next. Exactly. They want to know what happens next so they educate themselves if they don't understand what the text is saying, because they're interested and they're invested. And this is why popcorn reading is important. This is why reading as a group is important. We used to do this in English all the time when I was in school. And now ChatGPT is making adults lose their ability to retain info and conceptualize. Everybody's outsourcing the thought process to ChatGPT, which honestly can be beneficial for certain things, but using it for everything can be very detrimental. I'm not convinced I know how to read. I've just memorized a lot of words. This is why so many people get mad at my videos. They literally cannot comprehend what I'm saying. They can acknowledge, but they can't comprehend. Parents aren't reading to their kids. Another person, this is exactly why I don't argue facts with people who are calling it opinion. They don't understand the difference, and I'm not going to drive myself crazy trying unsuccessfully to make them understand. Another person, stop giving them babies tablets and give them a book. iPad kids, I mean, I have a video coming on that, but that's a topic for another day. Another person, bring back silent reading time. Let kids read whatever they like for a few minutes a day. It only takes a few minutes a day. You don't have to read for hours on end. I have a goal of at least 17 minutes a day, no matter how busy my day is. Usually I'll take that time when I'm about to go to sleep to unwind, to read a novel. I'm currently reading The Last Murder at the End of the World, and it's been a really great read, and it's really helped wind down at the end of the day. I honestly end up reading more than 17 minutes. I always read for an hour, but the goal is at least 17 minutes a day, just so I can say that I've read and that I made the attempt to read. But you start low, and then you increase naturally as you become more interested and more invested in the story. At least that's how it's worked for me.
I'm finding it increasingly difficult to engage with comments on social media, primarily because of the barrage of grammatical and spelling errors I see every single day. And this is just evidence of the ever-increasing literacy crisis, but I think why it isn't getting any better is because people come online and say that most adults in America read at a 7th or 8th grade reading level, and 54% of adults don't read above a 6th grade reading level. But the people who fall into that number don't think they're illiterate, because I read text messages, social media posts, and words for work every day, and I graduated from high school, so there's no way that I read at or below a middle school level. And sure, while there are people who are literally unable to sound out words, the majority of the literacy crisis is an inability to understand, comprehend, and relay the message of what was read. And I think when we focus more so on that fact, more people will understand that reading is more than being able to recite words on a page that you just see.
Well said. This is why I had to take a break from social media and from reading comments, because like I said, I would get frustrated trying to interpret what somebody is saying, and even YouTube comments I'll read sometimes, and I just give up because I'm like, I have no idea what they're trying to say. I have no idea what they're trying to convey, and it's just frustrating me. Don't even get me started on the woman versus women epidemic. Could have, should have is a very big one for me. It's could have or could have with minus well instead of might as well. Actually makes my skin crawl. That's ridiculous. Costed drives me crazy. And it just keeps going on of people just pointing out all the grammatical or like spelling errors that they see online. The list just keeps going. I think you get the point.
Anti-intellectualism hasn't gotten that bad, people say. The literacy crisis is made up. Someone on Twitter posted one of the most basic grammar rules humanly possible, and people started freaking out. This literally makes no sense. I have literally never seen this be used in actual writing. And in case you missed it, the thing that literally makes no sense is paragraph breaks when a new person is speaking.
That's so basic. I don't even know what to say other than you either didn't pay attention or you don't understand. That's how it worked when I was in school. That's how we knew who was speaking next or that a new speaker started to speak.
It's not even like writing advice. It's just how the English language works. The English language doesn't just stop working that way because you're talking about fan fiction. I'm also really enamored by "they don't owe you punctuation" as a sentence.
They actually do owe me punctuation because context is very important and punctuation adds a ton of context. Also, it breaks up a sentence, so I know where to take pauses. I'm not just running off and rambling. Punctuation is important. Let's not act like it's not.
I used to be naive to the literacy crisis because I can read through typos. So when I would see someone misspell something, I would be like, okay, like it was just the internet, typos all the time. But then I realized, oh, you meant to say that. You meant that word and it's wrong. For example, using the wrong, I usually give grace with the wrong yours, the wrong theirs. But people type out every since. Like, how it's ever since you started, they'll be like every since. And I'm like,
drives me insane.
You really think that's the right word?
People on the internet will be so loud and so wrong at the exact same time. It's actually insane. Taking a look at the comments, we don't talk about a or an enough. I ate a apple today. That drives me insane. When people don't understand that for vowels, you have to use an, and then for everything else, you use a, it drives me up a wall. Mortified means embarrassed, not scared. The amount of people that think that those are the same. Our and are not interchangeable, and irregardless is not a word. I've seen many people use irregardless. People that say allowed instead of allowed piss me off. People that confuse breath and breathe, quite and quiet, and feel are not interchangeable. And it just keeps going on like the last video. You get the point. All right, so this is the last video that I have for you guys today.
The New York Times published an article this week that was talking about how kids in school rarely read whole books anymore. Apparently, in a lot of school systems, teachers are being told to specifically teach excerpts, not entire texts. Even in my high school AP English classes, we used excerpts, but it was only in very specific scenarios. And now, high schoolers are graduating high school having never fully read an entire book, and they're going into these college spaces having to take freshman, sophomore level English courses, and professors are noticing that they are not able to digest whole texts. This scares me for two reasons. One, we are entering a time where a lot of children are being raised by parents who have never read a book. The amount of adults that I speak to and interact with, not only on TikTok, but also like in real life, that don't read on a regular basis, that don't give a about reading, and they are raising children. Number two, if school systems continue to prioritize teaching excerpts and not whole books, we are going to enter a literacy crisis that has never before been seen.
Too late, already there. Getting to college and not having ever read an entire book is egregious. Like, that's ridiculous. I cannot believe that that's a thing. How did you even get into the university in the first place? This is getting out of hand, and honestly, I'm scared. I'm scared for the kids of the future. I'm scared for how easily manipulated and controlled this next generation is going to be. Taking a look at the comments. I teach high school English. We still do full books. Every single parent-teacher conference, I have multiple parents telling me it's an unfair expectation. It's one book per quarter and they're seniors. Unfair? The idea of a college student not being able to digest a whole text and it's just a book. Answer, girl, we are in an active literacy crisis right now. That's what I'm saying. We are already there. Thank you for saying teachers are being told not to rather than blaming the teachers. Yeah, that's the thing, is that the teachers only do the curriculum that they're instructed to do. A lot of people will try to get online and blame the teachers and say it's their fault the kids can't read. It's not their fault. Typically, it's the Department of Education. It's their school district. It's whatever board runs that Department of Education that tells them what curriculum they're going to be teaching. It's their fault, not the teacher's fault. We just finished reading the entirety of Othello in my English class. That's insane. It's the awful curriculums the districts are buying. These curriculums are saying that read certain pages or paragraphs, and if they can't read, to read a synopsis instead. That's nuts. We would sometimes have to write 3 to 4 paragraphs per chapter summarizing important plot points, what was going on, and where we think the story might be headed next. This is insane to me. And that's about everything I have for this video today. I hope this was able to open your eyes as to how bad this is becoming and how much of a problem this actively is. And I hope that there's truly something that we can do about it. If not, kids of the future are gonna be doomed. Let me know in the comments down below what your reading experience is like, if you guys have taken up any books this year. Let me know what your reading goals are down below. As always, like, comment, and subscribe if you like this kind of content. There's gonna be more on the way. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.